Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on back to the booth. Valentine is flossing on my screen. Just be thankful that they're not flossing on yours.
This
It
isn't a
is
floss.
so
I'm
good
doing
to
a
be
little
back
jig.
with our. Now, Vega is flossing on my screen. It's just a lot of flossing happening here. Our dental hygiene goes crazy. He's widowy hitting the witty right now. So maybe one day we'll have cams on for this.
How did we get
Anyway,
here?
it is incredibly good to be back. We are so excited to start talking about the LVLCS. We've got a couple new segments today that I'll leave to surprise us. But let's start in. Let me check in with my co-hosts here. Vega, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I had enough time to get up and have breakfast and some coffee, so I'm doing okay.
That's a
It's
good
the
segue.
it's the last day before the season starts, so it's the biggest anticipation day. We finally are here. Finally get to see everybody playing this next week. I'm really excited.
Yes, I am also excited. I am especially excited to be sitting down with you guys on the weekends and just chitty-chatting about League of Legends, because that's my second favorite thing to do. Don't ask what the first is. Valentine, how are you doing on this lovely Sunday?
I'm rocking and rolling. Uh, it's been a busy week for me, so this is a nice time. This is a nice opportunity to just chill out and do not a lot.
Yeah, it's a nice kick it, relax kind of vibe. Maybe we'll have to bring that to some other components of the LBLCS to be determined. We shall see. Stay tuned. Les Force, how are you doing on this fine Sunday afternoon?
Honestly, I think I gotta like recompose myself because I just like still am kind of processing how the beginning of this show started, looking at the cams and just seeing the gritty. I think I saw like an Orange Justice. It was like a whole lot going on. So I'll like just need a couple minutes, but other than that, we've been doing good.
Well, that is excellent. I am glad to hear that you've been doing good and hopefully doing well as well. Um, yeah, I'm also still a little bit rattled. Chat, go ahead and check in with us. How are you guys doing on this fine Sunday afternoon? Uh, you know, I like to hear from you guys. Oh, thank you, Vega, for telling me that you're good. In yet another location. That's incredibly helpful. Val, yep, that's good. Yeah. Happy Death is so fine. Yep, maybe even happy. Lots of anticipation. Don't worry, we've got tons of anticipation as well. Lest Force, thank you so much for becoming the latest investor in the low budget LCS. We thank you very much for your financial contribution. Board meetings are at the Denny's in Vermont. That's actually where we're recording this from and sending it live to you guys at home right now. Les Force has managed to not yet spill his maple syrup. Oh, nope, never mind. Yeah, he did.
Oh, well, it's like you
Um,
jinxed it, right? It's like not my
yeah,
fault.
I mean that you know what? That one's on me. Uh, and you can talk to our buddy Todd. He's the assistant manager. Yep, shirt's totally ruined. It's terrible. It's terrible. So we're gonna go ahead and get right into it. We've got a lovely new segment here for you guys. And because I am super fucking delightful, I have sort of made a little bit of an intro for you guys as well, and I realized that I forgot to prep one last thing on it, but I just finished prepping it. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get excited for patch notes with Vega. Alrighty, and Vega, take it right on away.
Okay, so for everyone getting ready for the new season, you've had some time off, you've had some time away. Maybe you don't watch competitive professional league. Maybe this is your only source of competitive League of Legends, and you're like, what the heck is the meta? What are people playing? Who's going where? What champions are good? Well, I've got you. I'm going to help you figure that out today. So, Jack, if you could take us into our second slide there.
Indeed.
80 carries. That's the name of the game right now, okay? 80 carries. You like 80 carries. I like 80 carries. People like being carried by 80 carries. People do not like being carried against by 80 carries when they're carrying and they're building AD against you, okay? 80 carries are everywhere. 80 carries are top lane, they're jungle, they're mid lane, they're bot lane, they're support. They're mostly mid and bot, but for the point of this segment, I feel like saying that they're everywhere makes more sense. Also, in retrospect, That is a gif of Yone that I could not figure out who the champion was until this morning. He is not an AD. He technically builds AD. He could carry while building AD, but he's not one of the AD carries that we're talking about.
Off on a technicality on that one.
Yes. But Zeri, Trish, Lucian, Ezreal, Varus, all kinds of champions that could go all kinds of places, right? Kindred, technically AD carry, I guess. I don't know. She shoots. I feel like AD carry is kind of loose definition of person who has ranged gun bow type thing. Yes, AD carries. AD carries are very good right now. If you want to be good, you should play AD carries or play things that are good against AD carries. Okay? All right, take us to the next slide.
But quickly before I advance this slide, I just want to note that in your excitement about AD carries, you forgot to close your parenthesis. Parenthesis? Anyways.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I did.
It's not. Okay.
It's open-ended.
Okay.
It closes later in the...
Oh, it's open-ended.
Yeah.
Okay. I see.
Open-ended. Open to interpretation.
Well, the slide has been advanced.
Slide is advanced. Okay, so what else is good? If you're like, I hate AD carries, Vega. I can't stand them. I don't want to see them. I don't want to play them. I don't even purchase them on my account. What else is good? Well, not a lot has changed. A lot of the stuff that you liked last season is still pretty good. We didn't get a massive mid-season patch that kind of shook things up. But I'm starting this list with an AD carry. Ash is still very good. She's still tier 1, very blindable, a lot of utility, very good. But Vega, you said you stopped talking about AD carries. Okay, I promise. AP junglers. You like Zyra, you like Brand, you like Lilia, you like Karthus, you like Maokai when he's building AP. All of those are playable. You can play anything you want in the jungle. You can play any champion you want there. Mundo, also better. Warmox got buffed, then nerfed, but still good for Mundo because he doesn't care. He just likes health. Health is good. You know what's good against AD carries? Health. Building health and armor and all those things. It's really good. And Warmox supports, even despite the nerf, still very good. We still see a lot of Nautilus. We see a lot of Leona. We see Rel. We see some Alistar. We see lots of things still getting played in the support role. And that's a great gif of my lover Mundo, who I love dearly. And I'm definitely not level 1 Mundo player. But let's go to the next slide and round this out. What is the most important thing when playing League of Legends? Being able to pretend to be animal people. And the new champion is the bunny girl. Okay, so everyone who's excited about it, there she is. This little bunny's going to be hopping into your rift soon. She's been hotfix nerfed, but she's still very good. She's got a Jujutsu Kaisen ult. We all love anime, right? We're all here for that. She locks you in there. Domain expansion. Also, Silas changes. Maybe he gets played other places. I've seen some tank builds be pretty good. I've been greased by a guy building Infinity Edge Silas. Maybe that's a thing we might see. Varus buffs. Vega, I know you said no more AD carries. You promised me no more AD carries, then lied to me once. Now you're lying to me again. But Varus is good. He's good. He got buffed. His passive, more attack speed. You're autoing more with AD. And there's probably more stuff on this patch. There's probably all kinds of stuff people haven't figured out. But that's pretty much the rundown of what you're going to see on the Rift this week.
Well, that was excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's our latest segment, Patch Notes with Vega. So take that for what it's worth. Vega, thank you so much for being our resident excellent analyst. The other two are just mediocre, I guess. I don't know. Our resident high elo analyst. So we appreciate that and coming and bringing in the knowledge and thank you for the pizzazz, the juice, the je ne sais quoi that really sort of enhances this. So let's chat quickly. Like, what sort of implications might this have on our beloved low budget LCS? What are the kind of things that we're thinking about? Are we going to start seeing Infinity Edge Silas in week 1? What teams might be most excited about these changes? What teams might be least excited about these changes? Hit me with some analysis, my beloved analysts. Go ahead, Vega.
I'll say, usually with changes like this or like professional meta that's more in line, we usually see like financial executive more in line with what's happening in professional League of Legends, because a lot of the reason AD carries are good is because of like their ability to safe lane, take towers, play macro extremely well. Sorry, my scrim just loaded into a game, so it came up over my screen. But yes, like those things are more prevalent there. I do think largely we're not going to see massive changes in like economy commercial. I think still a lot of the stuff people were playing last season that they're comfortable on is very playable. I don't think that there's shifts that are so great that everyone is going to have to shift their playstyle. It just kind of makes certain things more playable. You know what I mean? Like now playing, if you have a mid laner who already kind of like Zeri, they can just play that now and it's fine. As opposed to like, it's not going to be like, you have to play this champion.
Yeah, and speaking of having to play the champion, someone you don't know in the chat is saying quit leaking the IE Sylas tech, so we should probably no longer talk about building Infinity Edge on Sylas. That seems to be something that someone really appreciates doing, so just to clarify, we didn't talk about building Infinity Edge on Sylas. The components, to be clear, are BF Sword, Pickaxe, and Crit Cloak. So just don't build that, and then its subsequent item on Sylas. Just don't do it. It actually doesn't happen. You may as well just never ban Sylas. But yes, absolutely, you are right, Vega. If there are players on a team who have like, or maybe role swapped from AD carry to mid, then they're happy with the ADCs in the mid lane. If there's players who, just for whatever reason, right clicking really makes them happy, or hitting Q a lot if they're and giving themselves carpal tunnel if they really like Zeri, then there's a bunch of different things that they can sort of get into on that one. So I'm pretty excited to see what we see out of our coming matches, and we'll talk a little bit about some more matches in just a bit. But I want to sort of pass it over to Valentine and/or Aaron, Less Force. We'll go to Less Force first. So tell us a little bit about what's going on for you when you look at these patch notes.
Well, so for me, I think that it's not so much like what's currently like directly the chance. Like, yes, 80 carries are super super strong, and I think that's something that like kind of complements that well, even if it's not like directly getting buffed. Are teams that can play Ivern, and Ivern is such a like he's not mechanically hard to play, but it's like really kind of hard to like figure out how to how to make Ivern work in a team setting and like how to be that supportive role. And so when I'm looking at teams like that can play through their 80 carries, one or two in a lane, and also kind of have that supportive jungle role. I think of like the Henchman in commercial. They played a lot of Ivern last season, and I think him's been picking up some 80s in the bag, so like they could be really good to start the year. You got the naughty Narwhals with Zebra, of course, big Ivern merchant.
Ivern aficionado.
Um, yeah, and I think at least for those teams, and those are the two that come off the top of my dome as far as like big Ivern fans. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of that prio early on.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point, which is that like when we see a certain class or a certain like segment of the champion population become super strong, champs that pair well with that also become super strong, right? So I'm thinking of like enchanters. Like when hyper carries are meta, then enchanters also become meta because you could like Jinx and Lulu, for example, are going to be like a very like high scaling kind of pairing, and so Ivern slots right into that. Right, like if we're not seeing a whole lot of carry junglers and we're seeing a lot of carries, like if we're seeing like triple AD comps, then yeah, why not throw an Ivern in there and sort of give your team that extra survivability that it might need if you're sort of bringing the engage from the support role. Absolutely. Yes, Zebra, you are the best Ivern in the league. I completely agree with that. Valentine, what do you think about these patch notes here?
I love Warmogs. I love Warmogs. I think the tank players of the LBLCS are reveling in the success of this item, and the carry top laners will have to revel in the fact that their opponents will have a million billion HP and won't be able to get poked out of lane. I love Warmogs.
I also love Warmogs. As a tank support player primarily, being able to rush Warmogs, it feels really good. Um, I think I just love seeing so much like HP, and also like all the different components are like pretty inexpensive to buy. So usually on a base, I'm able to like make a purchase. So it's just super nice. And I think the nerf, as Vega pointed out, did something to sort of tamp down on the power. But once you get that extra ruby crystal, and if you're taking those scaling HP, then I mean you get it like you get it like right afterwards anyway. So it's super exciting. What are some other things that we might want to be paying attention to regarding the patch notes before we move into discussing this week's matchups, this week's special matchups?
Here, let me go look at the patch notes.
Well, we have a lovely presentation that you could have consulted, but whatever, I guess.
I think Silas
Yeah.
being flexible now between multiple positions potentially could be something to watch out for. I know a couple
that.
teams, I'm not going to name anybody, but a couple teams that have top laners and stuff like that that like playing Silas, that now it becomes a little bit more viable. Also, I have seen people talk about Silas jungle. Just having that as a flex is nice because he also takes off a lot of these, especially in like rec league competitive play. A lot of times teams like to play those wombo combo team fight comps, and Silas kind of
Mhm.
is like the checker of those comps. Like, hey, you picked too many good ults. Like, Silas is very good into comps like that. So I think Silas being changed like that's going to be a big deal.
What do you think it is about the changes that have sort of allowed Silas Top to flourish a little bit more?
They increased the healing on his W, but in exchange for some of the damage, which is like that's fine for a lot of Silas players. They also lowered the later cooldown of his Q and buffed his base armor, which all should assist in making him just a little more bearable when he's gonna basically either be constantly fighting or constantly wave clearing up in the top lane. Mix that with the cosmic drive buffs they handed to the item, and Bruiser Silas is like back in business
So it's
for
really
those of us
these
who
item
like
changes
better
plus like some tweaking of where his power sort of is that allows him
Mhm.
to sort of be up there.
Yep.
Well, my Silas support also goes pretty fucking crazy. So
Is it that? Is that
get
though?
terrified, get terrified.
All
Just
right. Yeah.
quake in
I
your boots even.
Yeah. Quaking in my boots.
As we start to sort of like shift our attention a little bit more towards the implications, it occurs to me that perhaps we should start talking about the matchups this week. And so what we are doing is we're going to highlight one match from each group. Oh, sorry, from each league, not from each group, because we'd be here for 7 hours, like we were
You would
last week. So like you see what happens when we do every group. We can't really sufficiently talk. So we know that we're going to be talking about fewer matchups and fewer teams per week. But what we hope the result is that we can talk more in depth about teams and really sort of give them the respect and maybe make those little shout outs here and there where we can. So without further ado, let's transition on over to our economy match of the week, which will be the Kick and Squids versus the Team Volatility Rat Squires. By the way, side note, on logos, if your logo is like 4,000 pixels by 6,000 pixels, why? I have to resize it like 17 times in order to get it to fit on my little tiny baby OBS screen. So just be nice to me, maybe. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about this matchup. What makes the Kick and Squids versus the Rat Squires such an exciting week one matchup for people to just sort of pay attention to and maybe look out for? I don't believe any of the matchups that we're going to be talking about today have yet been scheduled. So
Yeah, they should get on that. I think one of the things we can definitely look at with this Squids versus Squires, which one great like name matchup, Squids v Squires rolls right off the tongue.
does it now?
Like sandpaper.
Yeah. Jesus. I think this is you have the TV Squires who are obviously I think this is Volatility's like debut in economy. If I'm I think this is the first time you guys
Yep.
have had an economy team.
First
Yeah.
time.
Um, and Kick and Squids, on the contrary, have been in economy for a very long time. They're like the old guardians of economy. So I think this is like a perfect matchup. You have a Squires team that's mostly newcomers versus a Kick and Squids team that is a lot of like faces that a lot of the old guard and like people who have been around for the last few seasons will recognize down in economy.
So
Yeah,
it's
I
kind
mean,
of
I
some
think
old v new that we got going on here.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like the Kick and Squids are kind of just like the gatekeepers in a sense. Like
Yeah.
they've been around so long, and they're kind of like that. they're like a really tough first check because it's like if the Squires who are like mostly new, and I think there's a couple players we could talk about on the roster that have played before, way back in the olden
Mhm.
days.
Mhm.
It's kind of like, hey, if this new team shows up and they're able to take down the Kicking Squids, like that's probably a pretty good omen for how their season's gonna go. Um, so yeah, I think it's a pretty big test for the newcomers.
Yeah,
This is to respond to Slap Bass Games. That's a great name. It is Group B.
that is a great
Um,
name.
so again, we'll be looking at one matchup from each league, so we won't be talking about Group A. Yeah, I mean, I think that when we think about sort of new teams coming in, and like TV not being new by any stretch of the imagination, but sort of like this team coming in, jumping into economy, absolutely being able to sort of have a matchup against like like ye old standard, as Valentine said,
Mhm.
of like this is the team that has been in economy for a while. They're well entrenched there. We're familiar with how they play. We're familiar with how, with their kind of quality of play. What's going to happen when those new teams come in, I think, is a really exciting kind of proposition there. Vega, did you want to chime in on this matchup at all?
Yeah, I mean, just obviously what Valentin said was all very good points to you too, Jack. But I think honestly, last year Kickin' Squids was a team that really came on like second half of the
Mhm.
season, and I'm curious to see if that form carries over. Kind of, I know there's a couple new players, things like that, but they really seem to get their confidence and figure things out towards the end
Mhm.
of the last season. So I'm really hyped to see the form they start the season with this time. And obviously, either of these teams getting a win would be a huge confidence boost in the
Yeah,
beginning of the season. That's a big
great
name
start
to
to
get a
the
win
season.
against early. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Mhm.
and maybe my recollection is incorrect, but the Kicking Squids have usually sort of occupied like the last or second to
4 or
last
5.
playoff spot, or like
Yeah,
barely missed playoffs. They've always sort of been like just a squeak over the line to make it into playoffs, and so if they sort of start off on a high note here, as we're talking about, maybe that's what gives them that extra push. It's very exciting. Valentine, were you sort of chiming in on that one?
yeah. I think in the last few seasons, they have either been the 4 seed, the 5th seed, or they've snuck into like the 3rd seed. That is like they have a
Mhm.
permanent residence near that side of the leaderboard, and I think it is a clear like indication of like what they're best at, right? They even in I love season 5 probably the most because they had a better game record than the 4 seed. They were 9-9. The 4 seed was 8-9. Right? That is a team that is just constantly gnawing at the bit to just kind of punch into playoffs and ruin someone's season.
Yep, teams like that always excite me. It feels like I think you used the word gatekeepers earlier, and I like that word. Like it feels different, but very much like a gatekeeper. It's like we'll let you know if you're supposed to be here or not. So we know a lot about the squids. Let's talk a little bit. Let's pivot to the squires a little bit, and maybe Les Force, you can chime in a little bit with some more of your own knowledge from this, because this is a team volatility team, and you being the owner of team volatility, perhaps you have some more insider knowledge that you feel comfortable enough parting with live on the booth.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, kind of mentioned, TV has gotten into this royal sector this off season. The Rat TV, the Rat Kingdom was a team back in season 10, I think it was. Kind of went
Yep.
dormant. Some of their main members joined TV over the past couple seasons, and now they're like coming back under the TV banner and really kind of expanding. So with that, one of those members of the Rat Kingdom back in season 10 was Ratlantis, who I thought was like a very strong support in a financial B that season. Took a couple seasons off and is now coming back into econ where they like more than held their own at the financial level. So like I would expect kind of that experience to kind of pay dividends, playing in economy this time around. And then the other veteran on this roster is Ponta, who I believe you guys have some experience with, Jack and Val as it wasn't the like original Panther Score
The
squad.
original Panther Core
Yeah,
Ponta
squad.
was on. Yeah, so
the
like,
original
and that's how long back we're talking. What was that, like season 6, season
Season
7,
5, I
5.
think.
season 5?
Yep.
Yeah, that so
Full
a very
season
long
ago.
time, like Plumber's
Not
era
too
almost.
Not quite. Close with no
Season right
cigar.
after Plumber's era.
Yeah,
Gatekeepers
just
season.
after.
Yeah.
So
Just escaped plumber accusation.
so you got these two veterans kind of in those big like macro focus roles, the ones where you're not necessarily having to like focus much on the hands, you're not having to focus, or you're more focused on the like the big picture team based stuff. And so I'm hoping that those two kind of veterans, quote unquote, can kind of help guide the three newcomers into being more like allow them to kind of focus on their hands, focus on their own gameplay, and kind of like get that taste of comp action.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll speak a little bit to the experience of playing in both economy and sort of above that as well, of like in like financial and then definitely in executive as well. It's like a lot of like the delta between teams is going to come down to macro, whereas in economy and maybe a little bit to a certain extent in commercial as well. And you can see this at the financial executive level too, but it's way more pronounced sort of um, at the economy commercial level, where it's like its hands diff becomes the major delta. Like if one like it's a skill check. Like I mean, when I was playing in econ, I basically had minimap minimized. I was just like get that out of my way. It's like obstructing my view of getting a lead in lane. And so if Ratlantis and Ponta are able to sort of bring some of that energy of like, okay, let's take a look at the macro, then that can really sort of supercharge an economy team that's already got good hands. And yeah, Ponta's my boy. Miss that guy. Glad that he's returning, and I will. I guess we're not supposed to be super biased on here, but I'm okay being biased in favor of an OG Panther Corps member, the OG Panther Corps recruits.
Did
Yeah,
you
me.
hear how Vega was slobbering all over Less Force the last episode? I think being biased is fine. I
He's
think
not a
this
milk
is-
player. He's not a milk. I went on here and was like, I love Kicking Squids. They're great. They just knocked Soy Milk out of playoffs last year. They're the best.
I'm trying to at least
Well, it's
pretend.
rational take.
I'm trying to at least pretend.
Yeah.
I know that we're biased as hell.
Let's Force isn't on milk, so
Yeah.
it's okay. That's just like,
Yeah.
that's just a true opinion.
I
That's-
gotta rep my boy, and Ratlantis. I think I played against in financial as well. So, I like rooting for people I've played against because it's like respect the competition kind of situation. So, I got. I'm gonna put my schmeckles on Rat Squires. Ooh, that could be fun. We bet. We bet on the teams.
Oh yeah,
Ooh.
add me at that.
Ooh, we just had a content idea right here, right now. All right.
God.
I'm going Squires.
I'm going
what about
Splits.
who else is going Squires?
I'll go Squids 2-1.
I'm going Squids, 100%.
Week
Yeah, I'm
one,
going Squids.
they've been
2-0.
around. So Jack's the lone Squire supporter.
Ooh.
3-1. Good. Good.
All right.
The only
cool.
reason, okay, I'm going to make a statement here. I'm going to go to the Captain Flower School of Predictions. No 2-1s.
No 2-1s.
2-0s or 0-2s. That's it.
Yeah. Squids 2-0.
Squids 2-0.
Okay, I'm going Squires 2-1. I think they win the first game, and then I think they lose the second game in sort of a sloppiness, and then Squires take the last game in a slam. That's what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. Cool.
Okay.
And then we'll have to figure out the stakes later, because we obviously have to figure out stakes to sort of put some of this on, because otherwise, like, what's the point if I can't be like losers? I mean, you guys do something embarrassing. Anyway, what other sort of comments do we have about this economy match of the week before we head into surprise, surprise, not commercial, but financial? We're going to go economy, financial, then executive. We got something special for you lined up for commercial. So what sort of final parting thoughts do we want to sort of add on top of this before we pivot on over to our financial match of the week?
Schedule your games, guys.
Schedule
your games.
Just do it.
Schedule your games.
Schedule the games. Schedule the games. Just do it. Just do it. All right. That feels like a good place to leave off on. So let's sort of pivot into this financial match of the week, which will be the Naughty Narwhals versus Beer and Snacks. So, analysts, tell me a little bit about what makes this matchup our financial match of the week.
Executive. Beer and Snacks had a tumultuous executive season last season, and they moved down to financial, where I think they will be very good. But they are going against Narwhals, which on paper, you're like, these are the Naughty Narwhals. They're known as a very good financial team. However, their jungler, Zebra, was a top 3 jungler and executive. Ruffian is Ruffian. He's very good at ADC. Uh, their top laner Unkindness, I think, was also, someone can correct me, was the Naughty Boys top laner
Yep.
last season. Yeah. So you have 3 executive alumni, and you've got Blue Moon Jelly in mid, and I think tentatively Toad is at support, but I also know that they are looking for new support because Toad is too good at the game. So the narwhals are kind of the narwhals are like a mash of naughty players and some outside influence who are looking to come in and start knocking heads off, and kind of return to, that financial strength that they left with, while Beer and Snacks is coming down from executive and saying this might be a little easier comparatively to what they had to go against last season. So I think this is going to be a matchup where we get to gauge how these two teams are going to look going into the season.
So
Yeah.
I think it just seems like it's like sort of people who are a bit they were competitive and executive, but not necessarily top tier teams and executive coming down a little bit here, and
Yep.
taking a look at financial with sort of salivating at the idea of this competition a little bit here. Vega, were you going to jump in on that train of thought or add some new mixes to this mash?
Oh, just a little bit. This is gonna kind of sound like a broken record. It's week one, so I mean, just the importance of these matchups in week one of like setting the tone of what your season's gonna be. If you're a team coming down from executive, it's I think important that your first game in financial, you want to look like you're at that competition
what
level.
you're
That you're like, okay, we stepped down. This is good. If you look, God forbid, you look out of your depth a little bit in that, then you start to maybe worry a little bit. But it is week one, not that big of a deal. But yeah, I think for a lot of teams, it's going to be a tone-setting week, and it's really our first public view of the level of teams, right? Because right now everyone's 0-0. Every team is relative same.
Mhm.
I mean, we can talk about who we think is strong, who we think should be good, but until we see gameplay, we don't really know. And as all of us who have competed and coached and done things, you know that a lot of times your scrim rumors about team are not what they are on stage, right? That once people are playing on stage, like the game slows down, certain teams play a lot better in like high pressure moments. And I think the week one for both these teams is going to be really important in seeing like what is their relative level to everybody else in the league? What is, which one of these teams could jump up to be one of our, surprise financial teams that dominates a group?
Yep.
Yep, and we did talk about what we thought about these teams from a 0-0 perspective, so you guys can go on the LBLCS YouTube channel and check out our first episode from this season, where we break down into tiers every single team in every single group, which is why it's 2.5 hours long. We'll be figuring out a better way of going about that. Perhaps splitting it into 2 episodes. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe we should reduce the number of players on each team to 1, and maybe only take 1 team next season, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. I like that's this. An inside joke. That'll be an outside joke soon. Soon. Yeah, we break down into tiers. A little bit of something like that too. At that 2 hour 15-minute mark where we're jumping into executive, I think all of us are like, holy moly. But to sort of bring our train of thought back into this lovely station of talking about the financial match of the week, I think Vega's bringing up a really important point of like, when these two teams could not have been necessarily better matched in week one, simply because the circumstances of them being in financial are so similar that now it's like, all right, you came down here, we came down here, show me what you got. Les Force, tell me a little bit about some of your thoughts, especially from like a competitor standpoint. You and I have both played against the Naughty Squad a bunch, and I'm less familiar with the Beer and Snack Squad, but we can sort of chat to that tune as well.
I think when I look at the Beer and Snacks, I think we've seen this a bunch in the LBLCS where there are teams that are like, in financial, they can kind of like take the league by storm. Like I think of like Fried Chicken, I think of Laser Moon. There's a third team that's like kind of eluding my brain at the moment. But then no, probably not. Anyway, so they're in financial, and then they kind of like, whether it's like one player ranks up too high or just like the collective average is just like a little too much, they get bumped up to executive, and then it's kind of like, it's not as easy. Like I personally think that the jump from financial to executive is like the biggest difference because
I
you're just
Yeah.
agree.
playing.
I
The
agree.
players are so insane up there, and it's just a huge gap. And so Beer and Snacks, I think last season was their first season in the LBLCS, and so they
Yep.
started in executive, and I think they won a couple series. I remember streaming one of their matchups. I think it was against Coffee House actually. And then they had some players that were like doing pretty good things from what I can remember. I think it was like Isaro, I think is
Yeah,
their
Isaro,
either the
Gurf
mid
could
laner, AD
fig as well.
carry. hmm
Mhm.
Like they have good players, and so now I think they might be doing the opposite here, where they're going to start an executive where it was kind of rough, come down to financial, and I wouldn't be shocked if they end up as one of those like financial plus caliber teams.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But they've got a really tough matchup because, again, like Jack said, we've all had to deal with the naughty players in the past. Again, Zebra is super good. Ruffian, if he's locked in, he'll be one of the best AD carries.
If
Yep.
Unkindness is very, very tough and as like a weak side or top. So I think for Beer and Snacks, the blueprint is there on how to beat the narwhals. It's just like you gotta beat the narwhals like
yeah,
and how they want to play the game.
you really got to
Yeah.
execute, and sort of you're talking to this point of like the narwhals. Like I mean, when we talked about the squids as like the gatekeepers of economy, the narwhals might be sort of a gatekeepers of financial in that way. Bears also chiming in. Was Howdy Chef the other team that you were thinking of as like the financial plus kind of roster?
Um,
They were
well,
they were
Howdy
they were
Chef and like
KFC
Laser
affiliated.
Moon, yeah, they, like
Um,
that whole like group I think had a couple different names, but yeah, that group as
yeah,
well. I think there was some carryover.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like, yeah, the narwhals. I mean, I've played with Zebra. I've played a bunch with Ruffian. Like these are incredibly good players who are incredibly experienced and well versed in the fives environment. When
hmm
Ruffian hasn't had a lot of soju, but assuming that he's able to lock in, then we're really in for a good matchup here. And I think Beer and Snacks has a real opportunity to sort of come in as newcomer's wrong,
Yeah.
but like kind of like a underdog is also wrong because they're sort of similarly matched. But like
Dark
underdog from
Horse.
like a popularity standpoint, maybe dark horse is a good term
Yeah.
there from
Yeah.
Yeah.
Valentine.
Dark
But
Horse.
like,
It's just
yeah,
because, if they come in and they knock, even a 2-1, a close 2-1 win, a 2-0 win, if they do that to Narwhals, everybody who has kind of been anticipating Narwhals is going to kind of be knocked on their ass, me included, right? It's going to shock a lot of people, so I think it could be very fun to see how they do week one.
yep, yep. And I think that if Beer and Snacks pull off like a good matchup against the narwhals, then they should be feeling really really good about themselves. Even if it is one of those close 2-1s like you're talking about. Yeah. What else do we need to know? It occurs to me that like we've talked a lot, and it's just obviously just biased because of our sample sizes. Like we've played with and against people on the narwhals much more than we've played with and against those on beer and snacks. What are we seeing from sort of the op.gg side of things? What are we seeing from like when we look back at their results, or we think about the teams that they've played against? Less Force, I think you talked about watching them or streaming them playing a game. What do we need to know about this team in order to sort of like catch up our knowledge and try to bring that delta between knowledge about narwhals and knowledge about beer and snacks to a bit more of an equitable standpoint?
Trying to see if I can go back in the annuls here to find that match that I watched from Coffee House versus Beer and Snacks. Let's see. I mean, as far as Naughty, like again, Ruffian going to play strong carry. Like he's not a big utility AD carry in my experience. He kind of plays that very strong role, especially if they have Toad. And again, I'm not really sure what the support situation is going to look like for week
Hmm.
one, but that is like a really strong, like they want to win kind of bot lane. Zebra loves to play towards bot, so that synergizes really well. Top lane probably just going to try to hold the line. You know what I mean? So they kind of have like I don't want to say it's like one dimensional, but it's kind of just like the things that they all like to do, at least for the narwhals, kind of really lines up well with each other.
You're right. Um, Yeah, Ruffian is not exactly the type to pick like Ash Jin. He's gonna pick something crazy, and Zebra's gonna chef it up on the Rift even better than he's gonna chef it up IRL, which he can really chef it up IRL. If you pay attention to the home garden and cooking channel at all, then that guy cooks. Um, so
That guy cooks. That guy fucks.
Ruffian Ash, one of his best. Well, maybe he's changed. He doesn't play at utility. He plays it gung ho. That guy has one setting. It's on,
Yeah, it is.
which is
Yeah,
very
he
Yeah.
doesn't know
exciting.
what weak side means.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've got sort of that question mark in the support position there too. So I think that sort of adds a little bit more anticipation and excitement because it's like, well, what's going to come up there? So I'm stoked to see that matchup. I think it's going to be a good one. What are some of the
Mhm.
final thoughts that we have, sort of thinking about this financial matchups before we pivot into executive to sort of move us over the halfway mark through these matches of the week?
I think if Beam Snacks takes this game, they will fuck up the climate of Financial B a lot because, Livewires, Narwhals, Highlanders were already all very worried about the Five Musketeers. If you throw Beam Snacks into that mix, it gets so much more shaky.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I am super excited. I think it's going to be great. I think Highlanders Week 1 matchup is against one of the new teams, TDS as well. And Duolingo
Yep.
Owl has been an absolute gem to
Yep.
schedule with. Has been very patient with me.
He's the best.
So I'm excited about
He
that.
is. I've only heard good things about this player.
Yeah. My week 1 Pookie, as he called it. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens in the bot lane there. Maybe it's just both of us, exploring each other's bodies in the alcove while our ADCs do their best. But we'll see what happens. Anyway, that's an odd note to pivot on, but I'm gonna pivot anyway. Let's talk about executive. Let's move right the fuck on. Let's talk about executive a little bit here. And here, since there's so little information that we have about the executive teams, what we did was we selected a matchup between two teams that seem pretty strong, but also we know nothing about. So definitely, if Odin's Eye Gaming or Loses Improve is in the chat right now, absolutely, please feel free to hype yourselves up, or the opposite of that, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do.
Or
Any
tell us
information
how
you
you're
have
gonna
is
lose.
Yeah.
welcome here. But let's talk a little bit about this matchup, and I know that we'll have less to say, and then we can pivot and go back towards commercial where we've got a little bit of a special something. But what are we seeing in this potential matchup between Odin's Eye Gaming and Loses Improve, besides the fact that both of them have pretty damn good logos? What makes this matchup something to watch?
Much to the tune of our last group and other week 1 groups. Executive is the group of new teams, right? It is a group
Mhm.
of teams that are trying to make a name for themselves, and the best way to do that is to come out and look really good week 1. I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, but yeah, this is, I will say, more than any other division, executive is the one most up in the air, right? The least known, like where we have the least amount of teams where we're like 100% that team's going to be, a playoff team. So I think early on establishing yourself as like a power, and also just for a confidence reason. Like, if you're a team, if you come out and win week 1, then you kind of vindicate your practice and prep for that week. And for a lot of teams I know, as much as the game is played in game, it's also a mental game, right? And especially at this level at executive, where so much of the game is your decision making and your confidence in your team, it's getting that like ball rolling week 1 for either of these teams would be massive. And it gives people who are looking for a team to root for an executive. I know my favorite team, is no longer here in past prime, so I'm looking for a new home. So if someone were to step out, and I'm just kidding, guys. It's Guangdong Tigers. I'm sold. I can't.
Gotta be
But,
Guangdong Tigers.
He's
yeah,
out of
sorry.
there.
I'm sorry, guy. But if you want to be my second favorite team, a good way to start that would be doing very well, in week 1. Not that I'm a bandwagoner, but
He's a bandwagoner. Except your identity, man.
I'm a Panthers and Hornets and CLG fan for the rest of my life, so I would like to root for one winning team. Past Prime also failed to win, so it ends with my history of maybe you don't want me to root for you.
Might be a curse. Yeah.
Maybe you
Yeah, I
don't
was
want
about
me
to
to root for you.
say, I see a common
You don't want
denominator
that.
here, man.
But yeah, I just think as we said before, week 1 is just super important, and both of these teams, it's a chance to put your name out as like a favorite.
Yeah, absolutely. Big opportunity to sort of make your mark. And Vega's love for the Guangdong Tigers goes so far that it was a runner-up for the match of the week in executive. And I'm certain that it will make match of the week at some point, regardless of how the Guangdong Tigers do. Les Force and Valentine, anything that you guys would like to add to this executive matchup of sort of exploring these new giants?
I mean, I've been looking a little bit at the OPs, and of course we don't until we see these guys on the Rift, and that's just for like executive as a whole. We're not 100% sure of like who's gonna be lining up where. We're not sure of kind of what the roster's gonna exactly look like. But looking at Odin's Eye Gaming, looks like their top players, from what I can assume in their lineup, is going to be jungle support. Both are 6-point kind of exception players, which means that they were at Masters last season. Santa Lumbre looks like a big fan of the Hook champs, Thresh, Blitzcrank, kind of dominating all of their rank games. And so that's kind of like, I mean, Jack, as a bit of a hooker yourself. Big
Excuse me.
threat.
I'm a well-experienced hooker.
well,
a bit of a hook.
yeah. Well, I mean, I've seen your Thresh, right?
Yeah, it's something.
I mean, look, those, if you're good at playing the hook champs, like you kind of dictate how the game's gonna go. And you pair that with Naga's voice, who is a like aggressive kind of invadey style AD jungler, playing like Kayn, Rek'Sai, Kindred. I think those kind of pair pretty well together. So like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of like support roams to enable the jungler and kind of make life tough for losers improve. Whereas when I look at that roster, kind of their superstar seems to be their mid laner, Amon V. Pretty standard kind of control mage style player from what I can tell. Again, this is all speculative. They could be playing a different role once the season comes. But I mean, I think just executive, like, there's not really a whole lot of like pre-existing knowledge, so there's not that bias coming in. So it really is kind of just like a whole new start for the executive league. So like, I'm just curious to see like who comes out guns blazing and like gets that rep as like the team to beat early on.
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree. I am super excited to see what happens. Valentine, did you want me to call on you? It seemed like you wanted me to call on you to talk about executive.
Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to see how they do. I mean, we've seen some pretty like interesting hook players do well in executive, so I think Santo is going to do just fine.
Well, yes, I mean we've certainly seen definitely some interesting hookers in the executive league do pretty okay.
Mhm.
Back-to-back finals even. I don't know, who knows. Can't fucking win a damn thing though. So yeah, I think that like the overarching theme that we're seeing from this sort of match of the week is that we want to see more. We want to see what happens in this matchup. We want to see what happens in executive. We're super excited to start learning about these teams and to start and we're super excited to start thinking about like, all right, well, like how do these teams match up against each other and sort of to postulate and like put in some predictions. We forgot to do our predictions for financial. So we'll do executive now, and then which is going to be purely speculation from all of us. And then we're going to go back to do our predictions for financial, and then we're going to pivot to a new segment that we're excited to debut. So what do you guys think? Who got OEG and who got LIV?
I got 2-0 Odin's Eye.
2-0 Odin's
Yeah,
Eye.
I'm going
right.
to. I'm going 2-0 inside as well.
Gotcha. Vega.
2-0 Lucifer. Yeah, I'm not doing it. I gotta go against.
All right, I'm gonna even it up. 2-0 loses improve.
All right.
All right, we'll see what happens. All right, and then pivoting quickly back to the financial. So who got narwhals?
2-0 narwhals.
Yeah, I'll go 2-0 Narwhals.
A repeat of executives.
You really want to go against the vibe, don't you?
I want to be a contrarian versus my honor as an analyst. Yeah, give me beer cheese. Give me no narwhals. It's narwhals 02 beer and cheese.
Whoa.
Okay.
Beer and snacks. So you might want to learn the team
Beer
name
and
before you
snacks.
hype them up.
Whatever.
I'm gonna go 2-1 on the walls. So I'm gonna go.
Wow. Oh, just me?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just me?
I'm
That
not.
means you have the most to gain.
I'm not that sorry, but anyway.
Just me?
Yeah. And if you get to be right, then I'm really excited to see what happens after that because I have to imagine you'll be insufferable about it.
Wait, are we live?
Yeah.
Yeah, super live.
Okay.
um. Anyway, let's pivot now towards a new segment from our beloved Valentine. And since it's a new segment, I've got a new stinger for us too. So let's see. Let's check this shit out, and we're gonna pivot on over to history facts with Valentine.
Yay!
Yay! All right, Val, tell us a little bit about these history facts heading into our commercial match of the week.
Go ahead and go to the next slide. We are here to talk about High Alert versus Team Backflip. This is
Wait, which High
slowly
Alert
becoming,
team?
High Alert.
High Alert
Period.
henchman?
Which one? Which one?
It's
High
the
Alert.
henchmen, right?
Period.
And the henchmen are the ones
High
in the
Alert.
commercial. Yep. Okay, good. Thanks.
High Alert. High Alert. Period. As has been specifically requested. High Alert versus Team Bolt. Actually, also, it's important because this history lesson expands past the henchman. So this is a genuinely a High Alert versus Team Backflip is honestly, if you ask me, one of the more genuine rivalries left in commercial. If you would take us to the next slide, you see High Alert and Team Backflip have been toe to toe with one another for the last 2 seasons. Specifically in season 11, we saw Backflip take second place in Group A. Is my stream frozen?
Did you want me to
It
advance the
doesn't.
slide?
I did say that. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I
I
did.
didn't hear you
Yeah,
say that.
bad comms, bad
Bad
comms.
comments. Bad
Yeah.
comments.
Back comms.
Or we'll talk about it after the game.
Season 11, we saw Backflip finish second place in Commercial A. And High Alert finished third in Commercial A, and those places in the standing were decided by a Week 8 match, literally the last week of the season. They played each other, and Backflip beat High Alert to solidify their spot at number 2, and both of those teams finished in the top 4 of the playoffs. And that was, little did we know, was going to be the start of what could potentially be a 3-season long or more kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Back and forth that the teams would have. In season 12, the Henchmen went undefeated, obviously, in terms of series score, to finish the season 12-2, and Backflip finished second in C, 4-2, 9-4 in terms of overall score. Now, one of the best parts about this is that even last season, as unstoppable as Henchmen look, a win at that point in the season, specifically in the last week, I think it was week 7, not week 6. I fucked that part up. In week 7, if the Backflip had beat the Henchmen 2-0, they would have sniped the first seed. So that game was just as important as the one last season, and I don't know how common it is, or in back-to-back seasons, for teams to have their deciding match against one another. Obviously, Backflip had an early exit thanks to TV Avalanche, who would eventually go on to the finals, while the Henchmen went on to not drop a series for the rest of the season, as they had done during the regular season, and went straight to win the entire thing. Next slide, please. So, and that kind of puts us in the spot as these teams cannot dodge each other. They simply cannot avoid one another. So, how I think it's going to go is that the winner of this one will be kind of in a great spot for the rest of the regular season. Both teams have finished minimum at the semifinals every time, the winning team at least, right, has finished semifinals or better. And if you always think about how those matches have turned out, it has a huge impact on the playoff atmosphere. If Backflip doesn't beat High Alert in season 11, High Alert could play Bad Boys Club or a TV Arcana, which would have been insane. And then maybe we get to see Backflip play Twimpus Flame, or maybe they don't have the resources to beat suboptimal gaming. In season 12, if the Henchmen had lost, we would have seen Backflip versus Italy, and then saw an early matchup of the finals matchup, Henchmen versus Avalanche. So I think that is really the key to this matchup. That's why this matchup feels so important. We are kind of lucky that this is a great week one matchup that we get to watch, and we'll kind of monitor how much it affects the rest of the standings throughout the season. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. And I advanced the slide to some other facts if you wanted to talk about
Ooh.
those as well.
I love these. Let's talk about some other league-based history facts, specifically pertaining to how teams do at the start of the season, what we should expect from certain returning teams and certain returning leagues. And if you go to the next slide, we will immediately find out that economy and commercial teams are really bad at repeating their their finalists, their winners. Serenity made finals 3 times in 4 seasons, but could not do it back to back. The Sharks won it in season 10, looked primed to win it in season 11, and lost in round 1. And in commercial, Sensei Randall's, very iconic roster of someone you don't know, Verja, Slothman, Andy Gwynn, Cooney, Old No Name, I think, was also on the roster at the time. Those guys made finals 3 seasons in a row, suffered heartbreak at the hands of Brick Soccer Team, and then won in season 8, and then suffered heartbreak again at the hands of the Right Swipe Kings. And most recently, High Alert, 2 championships in 3 seasons, but they couldn't quite connect the gap. But this season, the Henchmen are in what many would consider to be a prime position to break the economy and commercial curse of never being able to repeat. But only time will tell if that's the truth. However, there are 2 teams in financial that I think everybody is kind of like zoned in on. If you go to the next slide, because they are the 2 winningest teams in both phases of the regular season that financial has to offer. KFC has a 70% win rate in financial playoffs. 70%. This number, and it's boggled me. This number is boggled. It's true. This number is objectively correct. They dropped 0 games in season 9 when they went on to beat Mint Gaming Macchiato in 3 games. Dropped a game to DRX and went to 5 against Popo, and then obviously dropped more games in season 11 than they had ever before. But still, if you go into the game, you have a 7 in 10 chance of losing if you're going to KFC. And I mean, just on the large scope, back to back to back to back finals appearances. Obviously, 9 and 10 financial champions, and 1 season 7 executive, just because, I guess. I don't know.
Why not?
Yeah, like, right? Why not? And on the other end, Naughty Narwhals have returned. 90 Narwhals have returned to financial. They have not lost the game in the regular season. That's just like the objective truth. 7-0, 14-0, 100% regular season win rate. And while, yes, only 2/5 of that roster have actually returned, I mean, they might be the 2 most important pieces of that roster, with the close third being Daisy, who is still in financial, or not financial, who is still in the league and executive. So I think, now Swiftly, I think that is going to be both of these teams. Just you get the opportunity to watch them do what they do, especially during the regular season. I'm so excited to see how both of those teams perform. And if you can go to the next slide. Thank you so much for sitting through my yap session. Here's your fun fact. Earl King has made finals 5 times in 8 seasons. He's only missed playoff once. I've been playing for more seasons than Earl King, and he's made finals more times than I've made playoffs. Like, that is a insane stat. I like that. Crazy player.
Yes, and it will be pretty interesting to see what happens since Earl King is no longer playing on KFC, and so
Yeah.
we'll see how they can do with their new name. But anyways, that is our latest segment, History with Valentine. Thank you so much for putting that together.
No problem.
We really appreciate it. Also, the Narwhals, well, they did really great in the regular season. What happened in playoffs? They must have won.
They actually fell to the same kryptonite that the KFC almost fell to in the playoffs.
Ah, I
And
see. Wow.
I love those guys.
Popo
I'm
doing a pop on
Popo
the exciting teams in the financial league. Anyway, glad they're not back.
precisely.
Anyways, that is
That
our latest
that
segment,
was
History with Valentine. Thank you all very much for checking that out.
Yippee!
Yay! Good job, Al.
Thank
So
you.
let's talk a little bit. About these. I'm sorry, Zebra. I had to. Let's talk a little bit about this exciting commercial matchup. That we have here. For the High Alert Henchman versus Team Backflip.
Mhm.
So this is
Oh
the big
man,
rivalry
you
as
guys
Valentine teed up for us. Um, I dug right back for the actual henchman logo. You are
you
welcome.
went actually for the history. You have such a beef.
Dude.
This is
Actually,
insane.
so funny.
It is stupid. The organization is High Alert. The teams have to be named
But
after that.
the initial team in commercial was
I
named
don't
High
care.
Alert. If anything, the financial High Alert is the would have been the imposters.
Nope. It's stupid. You got an org, name each team. Don't just name one team because then you're playing favorites. Like that'd be if I had two sons, all right? And I
Oh,
named
I
one
didn't
of them
think about
Jack.
this.
Okay, this is hot take. I do agree with Jack on this.
Actually, okay, I didn't think about
There's no Milky
right?
Sports team. They're all different.
I didn't think about that. I
Um,
guess. Well, yeah. Okay. Les also has a different opinion. I know this because there's just a team
well, so like, I
volatility.
mean, I can acknowledge that youngster Joey does not like the team, like he doesn't like to have anything after the bit. Like both times he's been captain, it's been team volatility.
Mhm,
Personally, I like that little bit of flair. Initially, I wasn't the biggest fan, but with like money moves and BYOB, Arcana, like
mhm.
I kind of dig it.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I don't know. It's just
you're
like,
split.
I don't know. I just go back to
Right.
LCK. Okay, it even when they had
Ah,
sister teams, they were always there was never
yeah.
just like one
Well,
team and then the other had a sub name. It was always
well,
like Samsung
wasn't it
White, Samsung
SKT
Blue.
one? Wasn't it SKT one and then SKT1K?
Was it? No.
That doesn't sound
I
right to me.
Uh, Samsung White,
I
Samsung
feel
Blue,
like
KT Rollster Arrows, KT Rollster Bullets.
true.
Yeah, there wasn't just like, hey, you won World Samsung, so you're Samsung and now you're Blue.
Yeah, that would be really
It's
funny.
like,
This we are so off track. Let's talk about Henchman versus Backflip.
ultimately, I don't think it matters, but
Yes, let's talk about the henchman versus Backflip. All right. I don't care
yeah,
that
thank you.
High Alert is the OG name. You have made it the org. You have embraced the responsibilities that come along with that, which includes the ounce of creativity it takes to create exciting team names. If you've got a bunch of different High Alert teams, name each of them individually. Why are you playing favorites? Amateur
Or
move.
okay, if your executive team was named Tyler and you like embrace the idea that each of them in like baseball was like a feeder team, ultimately moving up to your executive team, then I think you could do High Alert as like your highest ranked team.
Yeah,
No, because
that's
we
what
still
Nani.
have
That's,
like
no, 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 that's what.
the Orioles and
Oh,
then the Norfolk Tides and then like all the like the teams that
Yeah,
come
but
below it. Like
at least then you could say like, oh, I play for High Alert Henchmen, which is a feeder team to the High
yeah,
Alert
they
main
are,
team.
yeah, but
dude. They are.
it's not like Orioles, Orioles blue,
Yeah.
Orioles white. Like it's like we've got some I don't know. I'd like to whatever. You know what? Let's get to this matchup. We're only
Jack's got
slightly off
opinions.
track. I've got opinions on everything.
He's got
If you
opinions.
ever need a guy with an opinion, call me.
And I'll take the opposite opinion.
Yeah. So call Vega and I. If you ever need people to argue,
You just
call
need
me
to
and
argue
Vega.
it.
Or just call any of us, any two of us, so we could find something to pick with each other about. Anyway, so let's get into Bear, we're seeing each other in like a couple months. Like, what do you mean? Let's get into this full tongue. Wow. Let's get into this exciting matchup between the Henchman and Team Backflip. Um, so we've got the rivalry that we've teed up across the history. Thank you, history with Valentine. We've got good rosters, and we've got almost good team names, at least from one of the teams. The other team decided to not be creative for reasons that are unknown to me, and really just unknown to
You
God
are
at this point.
so petty,
Yeah,
man.
Hold
there you
on,
go. You
hold
seem
on,
to have
hold
something you
on.
wanted to say.
It's SKT1S and SKT1K,
Get
and
fucked.
S
Oh
was
my!
the. It was. They did not have the same name. No one was SKT1.
He's so petty.
I had to
This
look
is
it up. I was
insane.
like, "Am I misremembering this?" I'm sorry. No, it's fine. Name your team whatever you want. But I
If
just want to
y'all
make sure
could see my
historically I'm correct.
smug ass face right now.
He is reveling in this.
It's like an evil boss, got the hands like interlocked under the chin, like nefarious almost.
Well, I mean, what can I say? So let's get into the analytics on this a little bit as we close out our episode for the day. What is it about these two teams that keeps them constantly butting heads at the top?
I'm
Besides the
doing a
fact that,
cookie.
That was
okay, I guess nothing.
You
We
want
can
us
move
to
on,
answer?
but yeah,
well,
ideally.
well. I thought Val was gonna go, and then I noticed that they
I
were
was,
like,
Me too. Me
switching
too.
back.
Yeah.
So
I was
I'll go. I mean, the backflip, they just have like such a uniform, like in their time in the LBLCS, like they've had kind of like what I was talking about with the narwhals, like they have one style that they like to play, and it's very similar. Their top laner is gonna play Ornn, gonna play Garen, gonna play Urgot, and he's not gonna lose top. You know, bot lane, I enjoy LOL and Zach M 1203, I think are the numbers. Like they're gonna be one of the best bot
yeah.
lanes in commercial. This time around, they made a couple swaps in the other roles, jungle and mid. They picked up Zodex from Old Manland, who I think is like one of
Yep.
those big hands champ kind of guy. Yasuo Yone, like
Mhm.
he's gonna challenge whoever is in the mid lane,
And I
and
think we
he's
saw
got
him in
like
the chat
one.
today too, so might be him.
Yeah, he was in there. And like one hell of a like test week one. Like him likes to play his control mages, Neferi if it's up, but like good luck playing, Oriana or Asol and trying to like scale up when you got a Yasuo in your face all game. So yeah, I think like Backflip just has that like super like they know how they want to win and they're just challenging other teams to like beat them at their own game.
So I think what I'm hearing is that it's just that they have really strong laners, specifically mid and bot, and that potentially this matchup in mid lane will be sort of decisive in determining whether one team, the henchmen, or the other team, Team Backflip, are able to really kind of take that cake, and sort of take this week one dub. Him in the chat saying easy counter Yasuo ban Sodex is fun to play against, and that he'll be going
Mhm.
for the assassins in this potentially telegraphing an assassin pick. If he locks Neferi, locks Zed, that would be very, very exciting. So
Yeah,
I,
that
I
would.
sincerely hope that is. Again, I don't know why none of these matches have yet been scheduled. So if you are a captain on one of these teams, please get to scheduling those matches so that we can go ahead and get excited, and see what comes out of this really exciting week one. Valentine, did you
Yeah,
want to chime in on the henchman versus backflip matchup?
yeah. Zodex and him is obviously a highlight matchup, but I think hands down, I think you have to look bot lane. Uh, in this matchup, you have on one side you have Nox and Spade, and on the other side you have I Enjoy Lol and Zach. I think these are the probably 1A, 1B of bot lanes coming into the season. Obviously, I think
Hold on.
throughout the season we're gonna find a lot of bot lanes that we like, maybe
Yeah.
some bot lanes we like more, stuff like
You're good.
that. But I think those two um are going to absolutely like this matchup right now is going to be the absolute best matchup you can get in commercial from the bot lane, especially until we learn about some of these, maybe learn about new threats in that lane.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm biased, but I love exciting bot lane matchups. Um, so I I think that's going to be exciting, and I think perhaps what makes it what makes bot lane matchups so exciting is that it's the 2v2 element of things.
Mhm.
Since it's like how does this unit play against this unit as opposed to this player versus this player, right? Like when we talk about bot lane
Exactly.
matchups, we're usually not just talking about the AD carries or the supports, unless you're talking about Panther Core Ghosts in the executive league with Seer and Jackie Boy.
Yeah.
It's like there's clearly a one-sided favorite in that one.
Yeah.
But
Jackie
it's
boy,
me.
obviously.
And so
Exactly.
you know, if something really exciting comes out of a bot lane matchup, I think it's usually as a result of some pretty unique teamwork and like because it just adds. I mean, it like it doesn't just double it, like squares the amount of interaction that happens since it's not just the 1v1, it's now the 2v2. Vega, did you want to be able to chime in on this exciting match of the week?
Yeah, just it's just like there's a lot of history between the two teams. I think like backflip, you want to see like a lot of people kind of earmark this as like two of the top two teams that are going to be in this group. Two of the
Mhm.
teams that like potentially could be the ones winning out here. So I think that having this so early in the season is almost like tone setting, like we've said about some of the others, but even more so than the others because they're two favorites, right? Like usually you expect whoever wins this matchup to go on to be one of the top teams in the group. So if you're a team that wins this early, you have that momentum to be like, okay, cool. We theoretically think the other person is the other best person in the group. We should now feel like we can, win out this group potentially. So I think having it early in the season is interesting as opposed to later in this, split. But yeah, it's gonna be fun, I think. Obviously rivalries are always fun too.
Yeah, and I think getting it so early in the season makes it so that when they eventually face off each other, face off against each other in playoffs, or like ideally if they're able to face off against each other in playoffs, then that makes that matchup so exciting because it's
Time.
like it's been a long time since they saw each other in week one. What's gonna happen now? Has
Mhm.
the team that lost leveled up enough to the point where they can sort of cut down against this against the team that beat them, or has the team that beat them continued to keep that momentum going? So, I am super excited to see what happens from the mid, from the bot, and then from our ever unsung lane, top lane as well. What final comments do we have about this matchup before we close out our show for the day?
Just insanely of all the matchups we kind of circled, this is the best like rivalry, like probably implications early in the season matchup. I think this is extremely hype, and if you're just a fan of like good League of Legends, it's a good one to tune into if it gets streamed.
Um, Going into the predictions, I do know that these teams scrimmed last week, and while that scrim did go 3-0 in direction of one team over the other, I'm gonna pivot. I'm gonna go the opposite. I'm gonna say 2-1 backflip week one. Kind of
Okay.
get the champs in that bit of that post championship slumber. Gonna catch them sleeping, and it's gonna be backflip with the upset.
Okay.
Mm.
Valentine, what do you think?
I am gonna go 2-0 Henchman. I think that was the result of their regular season match last season. I want to be wrong. I would be very interested in being wrong. I think if there's going to be anyone to contest the champs right out the gate, I think it'll be Backflip. But right now, I think Hitchmen are on a roll. So I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, I'm gonna lean Henchman here. I think backflip is probably some of the best competition they're gonna have all season, but I think Henchman is the bar right now. And until a champ's dethroned, I think I picked them.
All right. Well, I'm gonna even it up. I'm gonna join Less Force in predicting Team Backflip. And I'm excited to see what happens. Personally, one of the other things I wanted to shout out is that there's so many members from each of these teams in the chat right now. That like that's the type of interaction that we like to see. So when you have the opportunity to interact and sort of join in on the community fun, it just enhances the fun for everybody so much more. As long as you're doing it in a productive, pro-social way. I can beat up on Bear because Bear and I are friends, and Bear beats up on me anyway, and everybody always beats up on me, so I get at least a couple eggs to throw. But jump in on the fun, throw a little bit of competition. I love you, Bear, and I don't need rings. These hands look good clean, which is ironic because I'm wearing a ring right now.
Don't worry,
But
Jack. They're gonna stay that way.
Oh God.
Anyway, um, also, just to quickly shout out, if you are a team captain and or just on a member of a team, or you know that there's something interesting about a match that you're playing in a week, you can go ahead and shoot a DM to your favorite booth member. If it's not me, I'll be maybe okay with that, I think. Um, but I wanted to shout out a couple of quick things. One from Commercial Group C. 2% Milk versus OE Vanguard. The captain, Mew, texted me to let me know that that matchup is exciting because it is the rebranded Serenity Control Alt Deleted roster versus OE, which is the same organization they knocked out of playoffs in round one last split. So it's a bit of a grudge matchup in that way. Not necessarily a rivalry, but maybe a bit of a grudge, maybe a blossoming rivalry, perhaps. I'm getting flamed in the booth chat. And then the other piece of banter is from JK Slap Games about Economy Group A. It's the Nefarious Gaming Omens versus the Funny Business Investors. Slap Games says that they and Sammy were on a roster together in LBLCS Fall 2022, all the way back when, not quite Plumber's era, and that they played as a sub for them before he split ways with Clown Gaming. And is now on a different roster, so a little bit of like a we meet again kind of situation. So those are some other exciting matches to pay attention to in that arena there. All right, I didn't transition us back here. So what other things do we have before we close out this episode and get right into LBLCS week 1?
I mean, we already told people to get their game scheduled. Also, if you're a player and your captain hasn't posted in the thread for the schedule, your lovely streamers, you know, myself, Vega, LaChance, Buggle, Papoba, we aren't gonna know that you're playing. So you gotta get that game posted. Sooner you do that, sooner you're on the schedule, and helps your chance to get streamed if someone's available, of course.
Yes, yes. The
Mhm.
stream team is selecting their matches sort of on a rolling basis. So the earlier you get in, the earlier you get selected. Valentine, final thoughts before we sign off for the day.
Player games, have fun, and absolutely make sure to enjoy the time you have in the LBLCS because you never know when you can suddenly become the butt of every joke ever made.
I think it would be a very difficult. If you can dethrone me, please. This is the only thing I've ever won in the LBLCS. Is the butt of the joke. So please don't
God.
dethrone me. I need this. Vega, final thoughts before we close out for the day.
Not just hyped, you know, week 1. Excited to be back casting and doing stuff with the community and things like that. A lot of fun games week 1. But as everybody said, get your game scheduled. You know, make sure you guys, we can't cast you if we don't know when your game's happening. And send us interesting things. If there's something about your game that's interesting, as Jack said, DM any of these 3 with that information. Yeah.
Yeah, and if there's something about your team that's just interesting, regardless of a match that you're playing, we want to know about it. We care about these types of things. We really love the LBLCS. We volunteer to do this. Yeah, I know you guys are talking about like the production. Promise you, zero budget. All out of the free time. So I want to give a shout out to Vega for debuting the patch notes with Vega section. Thank you so much for putting that together. We appreciate you bringing your League of Legends expertise into the room and the gift selection that you can do. And Valentine, thank you so much for debuting yet another segment with this history stuff as the denoted LBLCS historian. We appreciate you bringing that wave of knowledge into the room with us as well. And chat, thank all of you guys so much for being so participatory and exciting and helping us hype up your matches and put together a really fun show. This is one of the highlights of my week, easily. And so being able to do this with these folks is super exciting, and being able to do it with a community as exciting as the LBLCS, that's exciting too, and it wouldn't be here without any of you guys. So, all right, thank you all so much. Enjoy the remaining hours left in your Sunday. Go schedule and or play your matches as you need to, and we will be back probably next week with another episode to talk about exactly how these predictions went, and maybe we'll have put down some stakes in the game to see if we can make it a little bit more important for us to get these things right. So have a safe rest of your Sunday. Get ready for this beautiful week ahead of us. And always remember
Mhm.
that it takes 2 to tango.